Okay, hi guys. We're going to be looking at methods in Java which are similar to functions in mathematics. So what I want to do is we'll just look at translating some mathematical formulae into Java and see how we can use methods to help us. So let's start up Eclipse and I'm going to make a new project. Now we'll start off with the quadratic formula, so I'll call this project Quadratic. And then inside Quadratic I'll create a class main, and I want my public static void main because this is going to be the starting point of my program. Okay, now since main is static, I want to get rid of the static part, so what I'll do is I'll just write new main inside my public static void main, and then down here I can put main, and it means that I don't have to bother with statics for everything else, so this is just a convenience. Okay, so let's start our program. Now the first task in our program is that we're going to need to read in the coefficients of the quadratic formula. So remember that the quadratic formula works for any quadratic of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So we need to ask the user to enter a, b and c, and then we're going to calculate the possible values of x. So please have a go at writing the code to use a scanner to read in values for a, b and c. Just pause the video now and try to do that yourself. Okay, I think it's time for me to show a solution. So first of all, create a scanner. Okay, and I'll import that. Right, next step, we're going to print a message to the user. And we'll read in the line. Okay, now we need to convert that line into a float or double. I'm going to use a double because it's a little bit more accurate. So I can do that by using the static method parseDouble to convert the string, which I read in, into a double value. Okay, so there's the code for A. Now I could repeat that for B and C. Now if I'm going to repeat it, obviously I'll need to rename these, so that would have to be line 2, that would have to be line 3, that's going to be B, that's going to be C, line 3, line 2. I have to do all that renaming because I can't declare a variable with the same name as a variable that I've already used. So this will read in A, B and C. Let's test it out. Probably better to test it if I print out the values that I read in at the end. Otherwise I won't know if I actually got the right values or not. Okay, let's test it out now. So enter value for A, 1.2, 2.3, didn't change the text, 3.4. Okay, there we go. So I should have changed that text, but apart from that it's working. Now this program is okay, but it does have a lot of duplication. So this part is, apart from the first line, it's repeated here, more or less exactly the same, and then again more or less exactly the same here. So what I want to do is I want to write a method inside this class so that I can take those repeated parts and extract them out. Okay, so if you feel confident with writing methods, pause the video now and have a go at writing that method yourself, and then I'll give you the solution in a moment. Okay, so here's the solution. Now the first thing is I'm reading in a double, so the return type of the method is obviously going to be double. So I'll call this read double. And when I read in a double, I probably want to take a string, which is what I'm going to say to prompt the user. Okay, so that might be enter value for A or something like that. It's going to be a piece of text. Okay, now I'm going to copy and paste the code that I wrote earlier on into here and just see what things I need to change so that it generalizes to any case. So the first thing is, I'm not going to say enter value for A each time. It's going to be enter value for something maybe, but I'll use the prompt that I was given. Okay, then I'll read in a line of text. That's where it's going to be the same. Now the other thing is, I'm not going to store it as A this time. What I'm going to do is whatever value I read in, I'm going to return that to the program which asked me to read a double. So there's my finished method, and up here I can replace all of this with double A equals read double, enter value for A. So when Java gets to this part, it's going to take this piece of text, and that will be stored in prompt, and that will get printed out down here. Then I'll read in the scanner, and I'll pass the double that the user gives me, and that value will be sent back to the main program and stored in A. Now of course I've replaced 4 lines with 1 line up here, but then I've added another 6 lines down here, so you might ask if it's a win. It is a win because I can use that same code to replace the next 2 parts as well. Just change this to B and C, and this to B and C. So this makes the program much simpler because I've extracted out the common parts of the program. If I run it again, enter value for A, 1.2, 2.3, 3.4, there go my values. Okay, now I suppose I don't use readW anywhere else, so let's make it private just to make it a bit neater. And I could make main private as well. Right, let's go on to the next step. So once I know the values of A, B and C, it's time to apply the quadratic formula. So again, I'm sure you know the quadratic formula. Minus b plus or minus root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Let's first of all work out the determinant. Okay, so the determinant is the b squared minus 4ac, which we have inside the square root. If the determinant is positive, then we'll have 2 roots. If it's 0, we'll have 1 root, and if it's negative, we don't have any real roots. What I'd like you to do next is please work out the determinant, and then based on the sign of the determinant, print out how many roots it has. Okay, so have a go at doing that now. Okay, so here's the solution. So first of all, double determinant equals, now I'm just going to do b squared as b times b, minus 4 times a times c. Now I'll pop in an if statement. If determinant is greater than 0, I know there are imaginary roots, but I'm just going to ignore those. And just say how many real roots there are. It saves me a bit of typing. Okay, so let's test that. So enter value for A, 1.2, 2.3, 3.4, no roots. Okay, I probably should have entered values where I actually knew for sure, but if I look at that, yeah, I don't think there are any roots because b squared minus 4ac, no, it is. It's going to be negative. Okay, that's fine. I think the next step is for you to try to calculate what the roots are using the quadratic formula and then print out the roots. So please take a moment to have a go at that before I do the solution. Okay, here comes the solution. So now I've got the determinant. I'm going to work out 2 values of x. So one is minus b minus, let's work out the square root go, minus b minus the root divided by 2 times a, and then the other root is going to be minus b plus the square root over 2 times a, and let's print them out. Okay, on the other hand, if the determinant is 0, then I'm going to just output minus b over 2a. So okay, let's give that a try. So first of all, let's say I was doing x plus 2 times x plus 3. That would mean that a was 1, and b was 5, and c was 6, and that does give me minus 3 and minus 2, so that's good. Let's test something with only one root. So if it was x plus 1 squared, a would be 1, and then b would be 2, and c would be 1, and that gives me minus 1 as the root. So that seems to work fine. I guess I could probably test it more thoroughly than I have done, because I've only tested it very casually for a few values there, but I'm not going to go through a super rigorous test here. Okay, next step, have a go at taking the determinant and putting that into its own method. Okay, so let's have a separate method which calculates the determinant, and I'll just give you a moment to have a go at doing that. Okay, so here's the solution. So down here, private. Now this is going to return a double again. Determinant. Now, in order to calculate the determinant, I need to provide all three values. So double A, double B, and double C. And then I just return that. Now, I have made the program longer here. So you could argue whether this is a good trade-off. But since the determinant is quite useful for all sorts of things, it probably is handy to have that as a separate method. And it also makes the program easier for people to read, as long as they're familiar with the terminology. Okay, so that's the end of this first part. The next part is that we're going to be having a look at how to draw the graph of the curve. So that's a little bit of a challenge.